So I wanted to do this video for those who are stuck where they are, and part of the reason they'll be stuck where they are is because perhaps they can't see how they will ever see what they're going to now do with their lives. So for example, if you're in a current career and you're thinking to yourself in the dark night of the soul, now you're starting to see life differently. How can you ever possibly go back to what you were doing, or how can you maintain the current career that you're in? This applies to everything in life, guys, as well, like relationship, or if you've got addictions or whatever else. It kind of applies to everything like that, but I'm going to keep it on the career path because we can all kind of really relate to jobs that we either don't like or careers that we have and stuff like that. So I'm going to keep it on the career base. It's just a bit easier to explain the video, and I think also for you guys to explain it, but you can change the word career for anything in life. And so that's what I want this little video to be about. And there probably will be some digressing here and there, because obviously I'm going to mention the system, and I can't ever mention the system without seemingly going off on one of my little wanders. And right there, I had to contain myself from doing exactly that, by the way. But yeah, one of the things that you have to kind of remember is that why you're maybe failing to see where you're actually going to go in life is obviously because although we know dark night of the soul is shedding the ego, so we know that it's doing that, there's still a part of us now, whilst we're deep in the throes of that, that still can only see the future according to how our old self, our ego, would have seen the past. So we're still thinking in this term of what we're good at, what our strengths are, how can we earn money from something. So, and because we're doing that, that keeps us stuck in this environment of, I want to move forward with my life and do something else in terms physically and mentally, and just for your inner self. You want to advance as a human being, if you like, but you can't see out of that because we're still thinking of ourselves through our old ego self of how we used to be. So in other words, if we've trained to be, let's say a physician, so we've trained to be, no, let's say a doctor. So we've trained to be a doctor, pretty much the same thing, really, I think. So don't tell me off for that. But let's say a doctor, and you're in that career, and you don't particularly like it, and now you're in the dark night of the soul, and you're stuck there. You don't want to maybe go back to being a doctor as a career, but you can't see any other way out of it. You can't see how you can ever really evolve as a spiritual being, or how you're going to ever kind of leave the dark night of the soul, because you can't see your full self for anything other than being a doctor. So going forward, you kind of think, how can I develop as a spiritual being if I'm just going to stay doing what it is that I am doing and what I've always been doing, which makes me unhappy? Now, I've used doctor there, guys. It could be a bricklayer, builder, whatever, anything whatsoever. The strong point here that I want you to try and remember is that as your ego starts leaving you, now to a lot of you this is going to be unconscious at the moment, but I promise you it starts becoming clear if you allow it. And go back to my other video where I talk about surrendering and stuff like that. But as you unravel yourself and your ego starts to lift, as your ego lifts, you become less conscious of what other people are thinking of you. And you become less conscious of what you believe or what you've been thinking society expects of you. So you're less embarrassed to look at areas that you might not have looked at before. A quick example of that, guys, I'm dyslexic, so I'm nervous about reading, nervous about writing and stuff like that, but I do this. So, and that's because I've become much less conscious about what it looks like to people. And as I'm actually recording this, my neighbour is sat in a chair in their garden, and they're actually looking at me, probably wondering, what is he doing now, talking to a phone again. But that's the whole point that I'm making, is as you unravel yourself, as your ego leaves you, so does a whole host of other areas. And it's not just that you start coming out and being your true self, which you do. But along with that comes all the wonderful feelings of, along with that come all the wonderful feelings that were crushed out of us at school years or in our infancy. So feelings that we might have had of shame if we didn't do things right and we have to stand in the corridor, or if we didn't play with the other kids in a certain area or at some party somewhere, how parents might say things like, oh, come on, you'd have much more fun with these children. In other words, if you're just there and you're playing on your own, your parents saying something like that kind of makes you feel like whatever it is that you're doing is wrong. How you're living your little life at that moment is wrong. Obviously, if you're very, very small, you're not consciously thinking that, but you can feel it. And the point I'm trying to make there is, it's a wide array of other people's judgments of us. And it goes from childhood, sometimes before childhood. And we can start picking up feelings when we're in our mum's wombs. And we start picking up tensions and stuff like that as we're coming out. And so when we're children, everything really is, guys, completely crushed out of us. And that, along with that, we have to then crush all our feelings down. So we've had to self-regulate. Now, that stays okay with us in life. Try and bear with me here. That stays okay with us in life if we remain unconscious. So if we don't spiritually awaken, we don't know that our feelings have been crushed. We don't know that we've been conditioned. So it all feels fine. But when you do, when you're fortunate enough, and I always think Dark Night of the Soul and the spiritual awakening, although it's awful, is a blessing. So when those of us are fortunate enough to have that spiritual awakening, and we go through the Dark Night of the Soul, we then start to see all the conditioning and all the lies that went on in us. And we can also see that all our old feelings when we were children were crushed. We can see how we suppressed them in order to please other people and to suit our environment. We crushed our feelings and our thoughts and our emotions to suit our environment. So now, as an adult, and some of us might have spent our life crushing this, it comes out of us. So along the suppression comes out of us, and along with the pain and the hurt that comes out with that, also comes up all the old feelings that we never used to have as a child. So what I mean by that is, can you remember as a child, when you used to play, we used to talk out loud to ourselves. I used to play cowboys and Indians with myself, and I'd always talk in an American accent with that. And I wouldn't care who was around, who was listening. In fact, it wasn't that I didn't care. I wasn't even conscious of those people. And that self-perception that you have as a child there is now what starts to come out of you as an adult. And again, I can revert to these videos because that's kind of how I am. I'm less concerned about what other people are thinking. So it's more like my old child has come out, and the old child is the one that says, I don't care what people want to say about me. I just want to play and have fun. And that's what these kind of videos are. They're fun to me now. I love it. I love it when I hear they help people. So I'm now spending a huge chunk of my life loving what I'm doing, and also indulging in the fact that other people are enjoying this and it's making them feel better and it's inspiring them to do their own things. So that really is the crux of the video, is to know that not only is your ego lifting, it's going to expose you in this other way, and you're going to see all the lies and the conditioning that went on, and that's going to create havoc within you, but it's also going to create a lovely clarity. There will always be this feeling in us in Dark Night of the Soul that because we can now see the lies, I always like to explain it like this. We all had these different dots in life, or this was how I saw mine, these different things that I wanted to achieve: relationship, house, money, holiday, I don't know, retirement. Every single thing I was doing in my life to try and get those things, I had made nothing but bad decisions. I had made bad decisions because every decision I was making, unconscious to me, was being made to please other people, really. And it was either made to please other people in terms of I wanted their approval, or pleasing them in the sense of I didn't want to stand out. I didn't want to disappoint society. So in one way or another, everything we've been doing has been done to please other people. And when that lifts, out comes the child that we once was, and the child is less concerned about those things. It's almost like the child doesn't understand what the system's on about with the rule book, which I will do a video on. It doesn't understand what everyone's on about, following the rules. Make your own rules. Life is there to make our own rules up. And we start seeing this, and that's how we start then really, evolving into the person that we was and who we are now, who we are in the dark night of the soul, to the present day us, and who we're going to be, and who we're going to be. And I think for many of us, I hope that what I'm saying there can offer some release, that if you just allow yourself into this dark night of the soul, if you allow yourself to relax with it, don't attach to those thoughts of, how can I ever be the same again? Life will never be the same again. Don't forget, if you're attaching to that, that's looping, and that loop is also saying to you, stay right where you are until you get an answer to that question. And like I said in the last video, you won't get an answer to those questions in that moment. The only time those questions will arise is if you allow yourself the space and the time to just be alone and be with those dark thoughts. And in this case, those dark thoughts are, what will I ever do with my life? I don't want to be I don't want to be the doctor forever, but I can't see any other way how I'm going to live and thrive. And that right there is when you can then sort of think, take the deep breaths. And sometimes I like to do the physical way of doing this, because I know what I was doing when I was walking around everywhere. These things would hit me. The fear would hit me, which would be immense in the stomach. Would be this immense fear of, how can I ever go forward? I never want to do what it was I was doing, in terms of relationship wise, in terms of job, in my dreams, beliefs, goals, desires. Everything had changed. I don't want those things, but what do I want? And the feeling would be terrifying inside of, if I don't know what I want, how will I ever become anything? And that's the point right there, guys. It's not about what you will become. It's about becoming someone within the dark night of the soul. You are unraveling it bit by bit. And that's why I say, don't attach to the thoughts so strongly, because you won't get an answer there and then. They only come when you relax into that dark night of the soul and you stop the looping in your head. And I'm aware that's a lot easier said than done, because as humans, we are, part of the conditioning is done, that we want answers there and then. We want to make sense of everything that's going on around us. Sometimes life just does not make sense. We haven't made sense of the Big Bang. Do we even know if the Big Bang was actually real or not? We're just going by what science has told us. And I'm not saying I'm doubting science or whatever. It's just throwing that out there to say, how do we actually really know? We don't. And that's the point. Life doesn't always make sense. And as humans, there is no failure. There's no error in us if we're not making sense of ourselves at a particular time. It doesn't matter. Do you think when a dog's doing its zooming, I love using dogs as analogies. Do you think when the dog's doing its zoomies and it has that release of energy and it runs up there and then it runs back and then it runs back and then it spins round and it's chasing its tail and it's barking, and no matter what you're telling this dog to do, it's just not listening to you and it's just doing its own thing anyway. The dog is not at that moment thinking, why am I doing this? This is such a waste of energy. I'm not sure what's going on here. And we need to relax with ourselves a little bit like that. We don't always need answers. Answers won't always be there. They are not always needed. It's just, like I say, it's part of the conditioning, always having to explain ourselves to people. The exam system, we have to learn this thing and then we get this mark. So in other words, that's a way of saying to us, we need validation for things that we're thinking. And that's innately what is in all of us unconsciously much of the time, is that we want this validation of what we're thinking. We want to know that it's okay. Well, it's okay to not be thinking much. And one of the areas that you can kind of try and help yourself to stop thinking. Because that's another thing, actually, when people say don't think too much, that's much easier said than done, because the more you try not to think, the more you actually start thinking. So if I said to you, don't, I might have used this before. If I have, then forgive me. If I said to you, don't think about an orange, you're now, all you can think about when someone says that is an orange. So it's much easier said than done. But that's the whole point. I said in another video as well about the meditation, those thoughts are there. But if you allow them to be there and you become aware that you're questioning yourself all the time, if you become aware that you're questioning yourself all the time, at least you know. And that right there is the part where the thoughts then slowly start to drop off. That might be quite hard to grasp that how can you just be aware of asking questions? Well, let me try and put it like this. If you're continuously asking yourself questions of how will I be? How will I get there? I can't see how I'm going to see who I'm going to come. If you're continually just asking those questions and you want answers, that's going to keep you looping. But if as you're asking those questions, you can find it in yourself to actually physically stop, maybe take some deep breaths, calm yourself down, physically say out loud, okay, get a grip, calm down, you're looping in your head and you're aware that you're looping. At least, and nothing, actually, don't expect some big miracle that your head clears. I think sometimes we're led to believe that happens in spirituality. It doesn't. And this channel, I like to talk real about spirituality. Spirituality is not floating off in the clouds all day and living this wonderful life of bliss. No, it's about finding your best self and living to your true essence, whatever your true essence is, whatever your being is and what it desires and what it feels it needs to give back to the world. That is spirituality. And so when you become aware that you're asking yourself those thoughts, you will also start generating this thing in you of, oh yeah, I can see that I'm looping. That doesn't necessarily mean that the looping will stop there and then, but become aware of the looping. And that will slowly, guys, it doesn't happen in an instant. It's slowly, and this is where it takes dedication, it takes commitment, it does take hard work. And hard work in terms of you have to physically sometimes stop and remind yourself that I need to become aware. Okay, become aware that I'm looping. And that right there, like I say, will help you surrender to the dark night of the soul. But just in a nutshell, guys, I hope that helps some of you. If you're feeling stuck, seeing where it is that you're going to go in life, you don't need to see that right now. Just be aware that you are becoming a person. And as you take the layers off of the conditioning, you will slowly be exposed. And you will those feelings and everything else that was crushed in you will slowly start coming out as well. And they're the good feelings of you no longer worry so much what other people are saying or thinking about you. And because of that, you're much more likely to look at other areas in your life. In fact, you're much more likely to just start naturally progressing down a different route in life. But if you take away the money attachment to whatever that route is, you have to take the money completely out of the equation. So if you take the monetary attachment to what route you're feeling you want to go, and you just allow yourself to go down that, whilst you are still keeping one foot in the matrix, because obviously we do need to earn money. So you probably will have to keep one foot in the matrix for a while. But if you allow yourself on the outside of that to slowly start going down whatever calling you think you have. Mine was these videos and writing, believe that or not. I still can't get my head around that. But that was my calling, was to do this kind of stuff. Yours might be a release through art. It might be a release through similar things, doing videos. It might be down a more a coaching role as to whatever it is in life you've experienced. If, just as an example, if you're an ex-addict or you're trying to break addictions, then you've obviously got some kind of knowledge on that. So maybe your life will naturally start evolving down a path where you help others break those cycles. I know with me, well, this is one thing, just digressing again slightly, we all show up in our spiritual worlds as different. As we uncover our layers, we're all we all become different. We all have the same kind of fundamental spirituality that goes on underneath everything, i.e. the connection we feel with everything that goes on. And I will do another video on the connection, because I think some people think we're going to become like Buddhas and monks and we feel so connected at all times and everything's wonderful. No, that's a myth as well. That's people who read spiritual books and they act a spiritual way of life to impress others. That's not actually what happens. There are moments when I'm out there, when I'm in the mountains, I have pure moments of realizing I don't end at the edge of my skin. I am more this. I actually think that was Jim Carrey who said that, so I don't want to take credit for that. That you don't end at the edge of your skin. A beautiful way of saying it. And you are just a pure part of nature. I've digressed off the point that I was making before, guys. I'm really sorry about that. But just in a nutshell, remember that all those old feelings will come up. You will go back to being the small child, but now you're also an adult. And you will much more go down the path in life that you will start seeing other paths in life open up to you, because you're not paying attention so much to what other people see and think of you. You don't worry so much about their judgments of you, because your why in life becomes bigger. And normally for most of us, our why in life, when we become the spiritual being that we are, our why in life becomes bigger, and it becomes much more important than the monetary terms and the impression that we can leave on people. It becomes much more about what can we give back to society, to humanity, sorry, to our species. What can we give back there? It really does become much more about that. And when that happens, it's beautiful. Oh, that's what I was saying. It shows up in different forms. So mine was through talking and doing videos, and yours might be through art, it might be through drama, it might be through music, it might just be through living a life that shows other people how you've become very content with yourself. So you're not actually doing something physical as such out in the world, but you've just started to slowly, quietly change your life about you, and you've become very content with who you are. And that right there is giving enough back, and you're living your authentic self. People observing someone authentic, we really all get drawn to authenticity. And we get drawn to authenticity because our whole life has been a complete suppression of our true identity. And there's a part of us that looks at people who are genuine and authentic, and we warm towards them because there's a part of that person that we want to be like. And we say things to ourselves like, wish I could be a little bit like that. But underneath that is a voice that says, don't you dare be like that, because people will judge you. And that's what holds most of us back. So anyway, I hope that brings a little bit of light to some of you. I hope you found that interesting. And as always, guys, I hope it made sense, which I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments, as you always do. So yeah, nothing else to say on that. I'm just so you know, I'm having a lot of trouble with my reception here in my caravan, and I do like to try and upload pretty much every day or every other day. I have tons to say, as you can tell, so I need to upload frequently, but I'm having a lot of trouble uploading my stuff. So it's something I'm currently working on. But anyway, guys, I love every one of you. Thank you for always contributing, and thank you for the private emails I get from you. It's a great day here, but I'm still going to go out and enjoy a part of nature, and I hope you have a great end of the week. Right, take care. Peace.